being able to take somebody's perspective doesn't always rely on what perspective they have. Most of the time, it relies on what perspective you have. So I work with people who are male, even though I'm not a male. And so I'm able to empathize with their situation, take a perspective, even though I'm not a male who's had that experience, because I'm able to identify with the emotional state. So, um, is it fair to say that some men get put in an emotional box where they can only feel anger, and that's the only socially accepted feeling that they are allowed to express? Yes, I think that's fair to say in my culture, from my understanding. Now, do I know what that's like personally? No. But am I able to take that perspective? Yes. Ask me why. Because I know what it's like as a woman to be mid sentence and for someone to cut me off and be like, yeah, but that's because you're a woman. And I, ooh, girl, ooh, because I don't want to go to jail. And I know what it's like to have to deal with that feeling of feeling slighted or insignificant or told to shut up or being felt, being made to feel as if I should be smaller, right? In that moment. And so I don't know what it's like to be like, I don't hear you unless you're angry, Taylor. I don't know what you're saying. That doesn't make sense to me, but it does make sense to me to be told, shut up, sit down, not right now, emotionally. And I know that's not a good feeling. I know how long that took me to process. I know what I said to the people who I talked out loud to when I was processing with them. Like all the things that came with my experience of those feelings, I can go back through that catalog and see like what might fit for this person. Am I talking to an introvert or extrovert? Am I talking to someone who would rather express their feelings out loud or internally? Am I talking to somebody who likes to be private or out in the open? Am I talking to somebody who has an awareness of mental and emotional states? Or am I talking to someone who has no idea? Who has no idea what I'm even saying, right? Am I talking to someone whose entire internal monologue is like this? Cool. Or am I talking to someone whose entire internal monologue is like this? Right? Like, how does this person want to be responded to? And I think that's a big piece of it. Yeah. Another reason why that is important, why that is important is because there are a lot of mothers who end up smothering their kids. I'm just going to talk about this very briefly. And the whole thing here is like, you don't understand because you're not a mother. Once you're a mother, you'll understand. That's not a healthy thing to say to a child because they're a child. So they shouldn't be like procreating or like any of that kind of stuff. Like what? Like what? Like what? So how can you expect someone with that level of brain and body and emotional and physical development to understand what your experience has been like? So this is where it's important to come into play, knowing when someone is supposed to take a perspective. Why are you saying this? Because the mom wants to feel validated, right? They are smothering their kid because the kid is doing unsafe behavior. They're smoking, they're drinking. Well, the kid isn't smoking and drinking because his life is perfect and wonderful and he loves it. There's something that's unmet that he's not getting from mom, that mom is refusing to engage in because she hasn't healed her emotions, that is giving the kid license in his underdeveloped, like not adult, right? Not adult brain and body and emotions, giving him the green light to be able to just go do that so I can get the need met. That's like teenager 101. Teenager 101. So the mom says, but he won't listen to me, and every time I go check his room at night I get nervous because sometimes he's not there and he sneaks out, and I can't trust him to be by himself, and I found packages and I found lighters and what she's saying is valid. That mom is concerned about her kid. Like she does not want him to overdose or die or be. All those fears are valid. Feelings are valid. What's not okay is you putting someone else in a box because your feelings matter more than their feelings. If you can't step away from your feelings to be able to see their perspective, then say that. Like that's what it is then. Like if you're not able to heal from your feelings until that behavior stops, then say that. Like that's what it is then. But you can't just expect a kid to understand where you're coming from. If what? If you don't understand where the kid is coming from. Flip it. So now the kid on his side, right? The kid didn't even ask to be born, didn't choose his name, didn't choose his hair color, eye color, height, weight. None of that do we get to decide. Didn't choose his parents, any of that. So he's doing his best at whatever his best is, based on his own cultural family values, whatever it is, blah 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 blah. And it inevitably there comes a disconnect in life because that's how life does, life lives. And he goes to a middle school where the girls don't like this type of guy, but they like this kind because social media is a thing, and oh, the mustache, probably whatever. Okay, and so he feels a disconnect socially. Then he goes home and he tries to talk to his mom about it, but mom does not take his perspective, is not able to meet his emotional needs, not because he's doing drugs yet, but just because she hasn't developed that skill. And so she goes, well, that's just how it is, honey. You'll find the one that works for you. Is that good advice? Kind of, but did it speak to the needs of her child? No, she kind of glazed over it. She kind of just, you know how you do a high five and you miss, and you're like, oh, that one didn't feel right. It didn't feel right. It didn't do it. So the kid goes, oh, okay. So then he goes to search somewhere else to get that need met, and that starts his online presence. And then he finds a girl, a person, whatever, that says exactly what they need to hear to fill that need, and it's either a healthy or unhealthy expression. But because this example is about a kiddo that started doing drugs, it's probably not a healthy person that they started to get this advice from. And maybe they are touching on that need, but maybe they're suggesting unhealthy thought patterns. Maybe they're suggesting unhealthy ways to deal with it and cope with it. And because mom is already categorized as somebody I can't trust or doesn't get it or whatever the case is, I decide as the teenager, I decided that line of communication is no longer open. That's not really a viable option, even though mom has a wealth of knowledge, years of experience being on earth that she could share with kid if only they knew how to communicate. But because kid decides that that's not an option, he starts turning to other stuff, and drugs hit fast and hard. And so he might even develop an addiction, especially if it's prevalent in his family or his biological history. And if that's the case, and he really doesn't like the way that mom talks to him, and he starts ruminating on that, and the other unhealthy people are reinforcing it, and TV doesn't help, and music doesn't help, and culture is not really a big help, right? To promoting the system of the value of family systems. Mom doesn't understand why she's doing her best and he's still pulling away. And then she ruminates on that. Maybe she talks to other mothers who have the same problem and they're not able to help her identify the true cause. They go, well, Billy does the same thing. They're just boys, Charlotte. Whatever the case is. And so now this woman is not able to reach her son. She finds him, catches him smoking in the bathroom once because he's a kiddo. He's dumb. Sorry. His brain isn't fully developed. And so she catches him smoking one day. Her alarm bells and trigger bells goes off because what's happening in her is not really that she's afraid for her kid's safety. That's some of it. But some of it is also, I failed as a parent because these standards are higher and higher and higher. And again, if they had just had the communication. And so being able to take perspective is a way to bridge gaps. Being able to take perspective is something that comes with you sitting with your own experience. Being able to take perspectives takes vulnerability. It takes a willingness to walk into a feeling that may or may not be comfortable, right? So being able to take perspectives is a very helpful tool because my ability to take perspectives is how I know this. And that's how I help people mediate their conversations when they go through stuff. Okay, bye.